Dames en heren, vergun my net 'n oomblik om vir ons die verrigtinge te open. Ons Hemelse Vader, ons dankie vir die voorreg wat ons het om vandag hier te mag vergader. Die genade om te kan by mekaar kom, om te kom leer, sodat ons die opdrag wat U aan ons gegee het, beter kan uitvoer, deur dit wat ons doen, na die beste van ons vermoëns te doen. Ons weet dat ons in soveel gevalle onkundig is, en daarom bid ons U vandag dat U die verrigtinge sal seën, en dat ons almal hier vandaan sal weggaan met die gevoel dat ons deur die genade veel beter toegerus is om te doen wat ons moet doen, terwyl U ons die genade gee. Seën al ons sprekers en wees ook met hulle wat gaan deelneem aan die besprekings, waar U gee dat die resultate baie duidelik sal blyk, wanneer U vir ons op U bestemde tyd reën gee vir die landbouer. Dankie ook vir die voedsel wat ons later vandag sal geniet, wil U ons seën by die gebruik daarvan, en wil U dan ook vanmiddag met ons elkeen onderskeidelik gaan na ons tuistes en ons bestemmings en ons veilig daar bring. Ons dankie vir U groot genade en ons om Christus wil. Amen. Dames en heren, dit is vir my uit die hart van die saak 'n besondere voorreg om U vandag hier by die Proteïen Navorsing Stichting se Soya Symposium aan U baie hartlik welkom te heet. Ek het besluit om terwille van ons buitelandse gas uit Amerika, wat nie Afrikaans magtig is nie, die verrigtinge in Engels te hou, en U sal verstaan hoekom ek dit so doen. Ladies and gentlemen, honored guests, it is certainly my honor and my privilege to officially open the Protein Research Foundation Soybean Symposium, the PRF Soybean Symposium today, and to welcome you all to this occasion. And more so since it is a first in several respects. Most importantly so, it is the first event since the Crop Estimates Committee recently announced that the 2014-15 season, which is drawing to a close now, will be the first season that we have managed in South Africa to exceed the 1 million ton soybean mark. It's been a dream for a long time, and certainly serves as the excitement to start to work for the 2nd million. And that despite the relatively bad season in most parts of the summer rainfall area. And this achievement also came one season earlier than was originally predicted by the PRF. Now, although South Africa is very small in international terms with regards to soybean production, it is certainly a red letter event for the South African soy industry and very specifically, obviously, for us at the PRF. It is a massive step in the right direction. Thomas Henry Huxley once said, hy het van 'n trapleer gepraat. Huxley said, the rung of a ladder was never meant to rest upon, but only to hold a man's foot long enough to enable him to put put the other foot somewhat higher. And that exactly is what today's symposium is all about. And we trust that these activities will assist us to step somewhat higher. You're aware that this symposium is a follow-up of the very popular Hatfield Farmers' Days, which the PRF staged for several years, and many of you attended such. And it's also a follow-up of the 2013 John Deere Information Days, together with the PRF. And then also you will recall last year's Soybean Crop Rotation Dynamics Days, where the PRF was involved in these days, organized by DuPont Pioneer, John Deere, BASF, and a couple of others, where we traveled the soy area for 5 days and had a huge attendance. And we at the PRF foresee that those joint farmer or information days with the seed and the chemical companies will become a standard item on the soy calendar in future years to come. But since 2015 marks the 25th anniversary celebrations of the PRF, we wanted to do something special this year, and from there then this, and in 2 days' time another similar symposium at Boerewil. Just to refresh the memory, the history of soybean production in the past 15 years went as follows. In 2000-2001, soybean was produced on 134,000 hectares only. In 2005-06, 5 years later, the 134,000 grew to 240,000. And 5 years later, in the 2010-11 season, the 240 grew to 418. Now, we still one season short to come to the 2015-16 season of another 5-year cycle, but the 418,000 hectares jumped to 687,000 hectares the past season, 2014-15, and that gave us then the 1 million ton mark in this past season. The PRF is also on record that we wish to see the 1 million tons more than doubled in the next 5 years, in the planting season of 2020. Our original calculations were based on 500,000 hectares at 2 tons per hectare in 2015 to give us the first 1 million tons. Yes, we did not achieve the 2 tons, but despite that, and I may know that people look at us with big eyes when we talk about an average of 2.5 million tons, fair enough. But it's still our projections that 1 million hectares at 2.5 tons per hectare will yield the 2.5 million tons of soybeans that we would like to see in South Africa in 2020. I think the same pattern will probably develop. We've already got the 687,000 hectares, and the 1 million hectares should be very easily within reach for 2020. And therefore, I'm quite sure that the one will make up for the other one, like we did with the 2015 projections of 500,000 hectares and 1 million tons. Finally, we get there in both respects. But in order to achieve that, these 2020 projections, there are certain conditions that have to be met, which we think are certainly possible. Firstly, the continued increase in hectares under soybean has to be sustained and even to be improved on an annual basis. As I said, the past season, soybeans were planted on 687,000 hectares, And I'm of the opinion that the 1 million hectares will be achieved well in advance of 2020. We also have the very best seed available from the most leading seed companies in the world, for which we are extremely grateful, but certain improvements are not only possible, but urgently required. And such examples would be RR2+, but also similar traits from other seed and chemical companies already available in other leading soybean producing countries, and in the southern hemisphere, notably so Brazil and Argentina. We are aware that China constantly blocks your developments by another year or so, but we certainly, when the Chinese problem has been solved, we'd like to be amongst the beneficiaries of all the wonderful developments that are being done in the soy world. And from our side, from the PRF side, we are in close contact with such international companies. But I think for today, more importantly so, there's ongoing work among the farming community, Grain South Africa, and the seed companies in South Africa concerning the end point royalties. A very, very important aspect, which is a condition precedent to the achievement of our wishes for the South African soy industry for 2020. And our Deputy Chairman and also the Deputy Chairman of Grain South Africa, Mr. Andre Stron, who is a member, an active member of that committee, assures me that the first agreements can already be reached as soon as the next year. It will not be soy or canola, but we trust that soy and canola will follow suit. Another important aspect is that the market for the increased production is already there. The fear that so many producers had about the capacities of especially the oil crushing industry, we are, from the PRF side and from the soybean industry side, we greatly indebted to the oil milling industry, who had the confidence in soybeans and already has the capacity of high quality technology to crush the expected 2.5 million tons of soybeans in 2020, hopefully for their sake even sooner. The goals of the PRF include, amongst other, the production of more protein for animal feeding locally to replace imported protein. Many of you have heard that story many times. Now, another 25th anniversary present that the PRF got was the fact that today we can announce, and many of you have maybe not noticed it, but some of you certainly have, and that is that for the first time in the past 40 years, South Africa has produced enough and more protein for animal feeding locally than what was imported. Despite the bad sunflower season, but thanks to the soybean and US farmers, proved itself under very difficult and trying conditions. And then lastly, another very important point and very high on the priority list in order to achieve the goals that we think are achievable for 2020 is farming practices. And that is what brought us here today. Our Hatfield days and the others after that all addressed either one or other important topic to either give the farmer a better gross margin or a higher yield or both. And the main purpose of today is to latch on to those previous topics. An aspect which, as I said earlier, is hopefully to be repeated regularly in the future. After all, Mother Teresa once said, to keep a lamp burning, we have to keep on putting oil in it. And that is exactly what we are endeavoring today and hopefully with such future events. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are very privileged to have 4 top-class speakers to address the topic, very, very important topic, weed control, and they will approach it from different perspectives. I just referred to higher yields or smaller losses in our crops, and I have little doubt that the actual picture concerning yield-reducing losses as a result of weeds will shake you. Coming from hands-on researchers such as Professor Knežević on my left, who has worked on yield-reducing influences that weeds have on soybean production on millions of hectares in different climatic conditions, but not only soybeans, many other related aspects as well. Professor Charlie Reinhardt is known to most of us, and he will discuss the spectrum of herbicides that is available for soybeans, as well as the resistance that may develop in the weeds and how it can be dealt with. Dr. Brian de Villiers will add a totally different angle, since he has conducted groundbreaking research on water quality and the influence of the efficiency of herbicides, not only to reduce costs, but also to protect the environment. And then finally, the proof of the pudding lies with the producer of soybeans in South Africa, Mr. Kobus van Koller. He's a member of the Grain South Africa Executive and a leading farmer in the sandy soils of Viljoenskroon, and he will give us a perspective on how a producer should handle weed control in practice, what the challenges are to effectively apply weed control in specific South African conditions, and to give us an overall hands-on view. And then finally, with all that input on table, I have no doubt that we will have a very lively panel discussion and interaction with everybody present. And I do invite you to take part very actively in the discussions to the benefit of all. Ladies and gentlemen, may the next 1,000,000 tons come swiftly and with considerably better margins than the first 1,000,000 tons. Once again, you are most welcome today, and thank you for your attendance.